morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Philip Ayeni, Managing Director of Precise Financial Systems. It's nice to have you online for this maiden edition of this particular broadcast. This will be the beginning of a series of topics that will be addressing issues relating to accounts reconciliation. Yes, of course, we know for every business that exists, there will always be transactions, multi-parties, transactions, and all whatnot. Just will lead to bookings in our respective books. And then we expect that, yes, at a point in time, we want to be sure that whatever financial status we have of our counterparty is exactly what the counterparty has concerning us. That's very, very easy. So we have for you for the next 15 months, we're going to be discussing series of topics which we believe very much will be of interest, to you. Our panelists for today will be very good friends of the house. We'll be looking at reconciliation as an underappreciated risk management control. Of course, our panelists will let us know what is meant by risks and their management, and then the involvement of accounts reconciliation as a tool to managing this particular type of risk. And on the panel I have this morning, I want to introduce to you sister there, that's Cecilia Osoka, being an accomplished banker all her life, 27 years experience, worked in frontline banks, UBA and EcoBank, and currently she's a consultant at the, she works at Avati Professional Managers as a consultant. And our second panelist is Taiwo Adeneye, who's also an accomplished banker and currently managing partner of Taiwo Lukayode Adeneye and Co-Chartered Accountants. So I want to welcome every one of you, and I want to believe you're going to have a very wonderful time. Okay, Mr. Taiwo Adeneye. So I want to start. The very first question here, but then let me look at this. I want to skip the very first question. I want to go by human resources. But before then, I would like Osoka to explain to us what is meant by risks within the ambit of accounts reconciliation. Please explain to us, Cecilia, risks. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. First and foremost, Cecilia is a partner with Avati Professional Managers. I'm a founding partner with Avati Professional Managers. Risk, as we all know, is the possibility of a loss occurring through some certain action. It could be from somebody not doing what they're supposed to do, basically. And risk can turn out two ways. You take a risk, it could be a gain, it could also be a loss. But in this particular case, the kinds of risk we are talking about is when you have losses arising from people not doing certain things that they should do in the accounting process and cycle. And that's what we're talking about here. And I think that's our focus.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very much, Cecilia. And Taiwo Adeneye on board already. I want to ask you, I want you to explain to our audience what is meant by accounts reconciliation as a tool for risk management. How is it a tool? How has it become a tool in risk management? Taiwo, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me here. I believe that this session is going to be very wonderful for all of us. Yeah, going to account reconciliation as a risk management tool. Number one, we should realize that account reconciliation is a high-level control. High-level control, if you miss anything at this control level, you've missed it all, and it could lead to financial losses. It could lead to erosion of your revenue. It could lead to fraud, and a lot of things could go wrong. And of course, it is an issue of process. Whatever you cannot, it's a detective control. Whatever you cannot detect at that level is missing forever. And it has put many organizations on their knees, or has even left them in the archives, confined to history. So I believe that this is why it is very, very important to ensure that management at the highest level is involved in reconciliation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Taiwo. Cecilia, you want to chip in a word?
Yes, just like we have said, from practice and really seeing what is going on, it doesn't matter the size of your company, management has to be involved.
Yes.
I agree with Taiwo.
Okay, fine, thank you. Now, Cecilia, this will go for you. And we know that, of course, since the beginning of business, as it were, human resources have always been involved in transactions, business transactions, either automated or manual or a mixture of both. And so how important will this particular issue, human resources, in actually helping organizations to achieve their aims? How come that human resources are so important and the quality of these resources will be so important as to managing your accounts reconciliation process? Cecilia, please throw more light on this. Thank you.
Just as you have said, the first thing is that there should be a recognition that it is what? A high-risk control function. If there is no recognition, then in your template for hiring, in your template for putting staff in that position, there is no way that you can know what to do. So it's important that as we map out our companies, as we decide roles and job functions, we understand that reconciliation function is what? Is a high-risk management function. And therefore, what does it mean again? It then means that it's also a cerebral reconciliation if you are not a thinking kind of person. So it's not just everybody who can be in, who can do this account reconciliation function. Yes. And we also know, talking about risk, then you need people of integrity. You can't have a lazy person there. If you're not a person of integrity, you can just match off anything you like and move on. And therefore, the organization, just like Taiwo has said, is dead on arrival. Wow. So we need people, again, with requisite skills. Are we willing to teach requisite skills? You cannot throw away the fact that you need people who have good Excel skills, who can communicate effectively, who are intuitive. And so as you decide what you want to have in your tests or in your interview questions, these are the kind of things we expect HR to factor in. It requires focus. You know, somebody who is doing this function cannot be multitasking. So you can't tell that person, okay, go and run and do this, go and run and do this. You find that people who are doing this job in large organizations are secluded, focused on what they are doing because they are expected to give reports at particular times. So I must say again that the quality of human resources is not just anybody. Yeah. You have to be selective. You must choose people who are teachable, requisite skills, who can focus, and also who are people of integrity. It's just like the clearing function. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, this point is very, 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 very crucial because we will have some other questions. I will talk about that towards the end of the program. But we have a situation whereby it's like, yes, accounts reconciliation is a back office function, and it's almost anybody can actually go there and work. You see somebody that read history and I will go there and work. Someone that read English can go there and work and them on what to do. What is your opinion about this? I want you to make a clarification because we've made it very, very clear. The prerequisites in terms of risks and terms of skills that the reconciling officer should possess. How do you reconcile this? When management or the people that are supervising will actually may tend to look at the human resources and say that, yes, it's almost a dumping ground. Transfer anybody there to go and do it, just stay there. Is it not knock off? Let them just go and knock on, give me outstanding items. What's your opinion about this, Cecilia?
Okay. First and foremost, it has to do with when we set up these departments, especially in organizations. Accounts reconciliation, we say it's accounts reconciliation. Accounts is not just anybody that can do accounts. So first and foremost, you cannot take somebody who read history or English and hasn't done a little bit of accounting, because we are talking now about account balances, what goes in, what goes out. So if you have, you can't but say to yourself, it's not a dumping ground, you know? And I think this is where we have said management has to come in. Define the manager has to define who they want where. This is round holes in round pegs in round holes. You can't afford any other thing. So I hope we have HR people listening in, you know, so that they can understand. Yes, you need to understand what you are into, especially in the large complex organizations. No time to teach. So what you're saying is no time to teach. Then you have a higher risk of losses coming to you than you can imagine.
Yeah, fine. Before I call you to chip in a word, I just recollect a discussion I had with a friend many years ago. I saying that look, these reconciliation officers, they are supposed to be very, very skillful. And when they look at figures, when they look at any item whatsoever in either of the two books, that they must be proficient enough to tell you the history behind those figures. You've seen an outstanding items in your own ledger, you should be able to say, oh, this nature of this transaction must have passed through these processes before it gets into the books. So that's actually portraying the fact that, yes, these people need to be adepts in the area of accounting and process and then the rest. Taiwo, do you want to chip in a word on the quality of human resources?
Absolutely. Just like Cecilia said, you don't just put anybody in account reconciliation unit or function, because like I said before, it's a high-level control. It requires experience. It requires people that are very, very knowledgeable about the process of that organization, of whatever product that organization, you know, is running. So if you don't understand the process, you cannot successfully do reconciliation. So you need to understand the process. And the process we're talking about is from end to end. It's not the kind of, you are just, this is what I do, or this is what I know. You must know it from end to end. And then you'll be able to know why this is outstanding. And there are people that should be in reconciliation unit or reconciliation function must be people that are ready to also, you know, go in depth, carry out in-depth analysis, and they must understand one thing, that their function does not end at reconciling. They are like consultants to the organization. They should be able to say, this is why, this is what is wrong with this process. This is why we're having this kind of outstanding. You understand what I'm saying? So somebody who is going to act as a consultant must be well experienced and must have a positive mind, the mind of helping the organization. So that's why you don't just dump somebody who is frustrated or who you think you want to frustrate in reconciliation department. Must be somebody who is ready to add value and who is motivated to add value to the organization.
In fact, I can see this team, you know, out of time, and I don't want to frustrate you, but time is not my friend too. So please, thank you very much, Taiwo. I know we start talking about human resources here concerning the accounts reconciliation, can even take us the whole day. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the fact that supervision. Let's look at this. it's also another angle of, human resources. But this time around, specifically, you are talking about supervision. Yes, this guy is supervising a team of accounts reconciliation. What is his own quality? What should he or she be looking out for? It doesn't matter whether the reconciliation system will say that, yes, it can be distributed or centralized. Distributed by meaning that, yes, you have many units doing reconciliation for an organization concurrently. And if it is centralized, you have a unit that does reconciliation exercise for all the reconciliation that the organization will look like. So the supervision, how is it very critical? Taiwo, please, 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, Philip. When it comes to supervision of this function, just like we have said before, the quality of that person is very, very essential, whether it is the distributed system or a centralized system. Well, there are advantages and disadvantages with whether it is centralized or decentralized, but we are not going into that now. But we're looking at, this supervisory function, the quality of the supervisor. It must be somebody who understands that process. If, for instance, if you're reconciling foreign accounts, if you don't understand the process of foreign accounts, you can't supervise it. You don't understand the process of remitting foreign currencies and all that, how it is initiated and how it finally ends, at the beneficiary's account, and how you recoup from customers, how you relate with a CBN, for instance. And if you don't understand all that process, you cannot supervise it effectively. And of course, the supervisor needs to take ownership. Takes ownership. You don't just assume that your officer or your staff has done the reconciliation and it just signs off, and if you bring it, you just sign off. And when you see a particular figure, I'm talking from an experience now, you see a particular figure, the same amount, date is just changing. It could be a fraud that is just hidden in that place, right? It could be an unpaid obligation that is hidden in that place. It could be I said it could be a fraud. So you need to understand and then be able to check whatever is outstanding, validate it. Is it really outstanding? And if it is outstanding, why is it outstanding? And for anything that is outstanding for beyond a specific period, you should be concerned as a supervisor. Why is this thing outstanding? And if there is a particular trend of outstanding, you then need to go back to the process. And because if the process is wrong, it will throw it off.
Please, let me just puncture at this point. Okay, I want to ask a specific question. You said that the supervisor must be on top of the game, right? Yeah. And then the guy must take ownership. That's the word I want to. That he must take ownership. Now, I'm an accounts reconciling officer. I have 500 transactions in one book. I have maybe another 480 in the other book, and I've reconciled. After reconciling, I have just about, say, 20 items in one book and 18 items in the other book, 38 altogether, out of 950 outstanding. And when I produce my reports, I give it to my supervisor. The only thing he sees are the 90
outstanding items.
Yes. He or she does not even know how I had matched. 950 minus 38. That is
not even talking of 900.
So, and you are saying that this guy should take ownership. How does he take ownership of the transactions that he didn't even see?
Fantastic. You see, I will say this. There is no two way about it. You've got to take ownership. I've worked in an environment where, that was manual. before we automated it. And of course, that's why we spend so much time. A lazy person cannot supervise reconciliation unit. You must be ready to roll up your sleeves. So you need to, I've discovered, in the past, where some items are just repeated, before reconciliation came to me. Yeah. And that time, what was the shareholding of, what was the share capital of a bank then? I'm talking of in the 90s. And a whole amount of, I think, if I can remember very well, 5 million or 50 million was always repeated, and they were just changing the dates and so on and so forth. Until I asked question and I went to dig it out. And of course, because they have replaced this amount over and over for months and years, it's been pending, it's been outstanding. So I had to do it manually and get it out, that this is the specific thing that is outstanding. It was a manual environment. And maybe that is what even made us to meet, because it was at that point I insisted that we need to automate that process.
Okay, fine. So
because when you automate the process, it then makes it easier for you. But it does not mean that if it is not automated, you don't carry out that responsibility.
That responsibility.
Whether it is automated or not, you have to do it.
You have to do it.
You have to, because if you don't do it, something embarrassing will happen.
Will happen. Okay.
Even your staff can now connive with fraudsters.
Okay, Taiwo. I know. I know the energy is there. The passion is there. Don't worry. I'll try my best. Okay, Cecilia, please, you want to put in a word?
Yes, I want us to also look at small companies. We have a lot of SMEs. SMEs are driving the economy. But you have the SME owners, where we are talking about risk control. It's the same thing that applies. SME owners have to say to themselves, the bank reconciliation statement being prepared monthly, and the accounting functions themselves in their organizations, are they putting in any effort in knowing what is happening? And that's why we say a lot of SMEs have lost out, because the owners do not take responsibility for their accounts. Okay, when we are looking at a large organization, you can have division of labor. In a small organization, I run a small organization, I don't have an excuse not to say I want to see the bank reconciliation statement. I give it to somebody to do. Let me have a feel. What is going in? What is going out? Are my controls in place? Are these figures coming in anyhow? Do I have the PVs? Am I checking? So you also have to drive it down to every form of business. The small business owner, I'm sure some of them are here, and we are trying to tell you that you have to now be the quality control person in your organization. Look at your bank reconciliation statements. If you outsource this function to an external accountant, ask to see the bank reconciliation. Have it explained to you. Check to make sure that your books, somebody is not repeating transactions again. And we can take it from there. But it all applies to a small business. And I mean, that's space now.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. I quite agree with you that it's applicable to any form of business. Okay. But even if you have few transactions, it's not about being driven by volume of transactions. It's about having the right process in place, which is sustainable and can accommodate growth and expansion. I also want to chip in for the SMEs. I know you bankers do not like that, but I must say here that, look, if you are a non-banking organization, it is also necessary too for you to check out on your finance cost adjustment. And I think that is also part of supervisory work. You want to know the bank charges, interest on overdraft, interest on loans, and that's another topic for another day. But I know the non-bankers will like it, and we're going to bring it up as we go along. Thank you very much, Cecilia. Now I want to move to the next thing. Cecilia, I want you to talk about account scope. It is very common that we see that organizations, some organizations are not even able to identify the reconcilable accounts within their organization. Okay. What does that mean? What risks are they exposed to? Please shed light on that, Cecilia.
It's so simple to say that the larger the organization and the more complex it is in its transactions, the more accounts that we have to reconcile. So when we are talking about accounts reconciliation, this is now a technical thing we are going into. It depends on how your accounts, your chart of accounts has been set up and your transactions flow. Just like Taiwo has been talking about the process, the transaction cycle and all. If you're a large organization that has complex transactions like banks, you have different types of accounts set up, your transit accounts, your GL accounts and all that. Okay, now tell me how you can put somebody with history to look at this scope of accounts. Okay, so the scope of accounts can be in hundreds, it can be 10, it can be 7, it can be 8. But what we are saying is, what do we put in these accounts and who is going to look at what we put in these accounts to ensure that nothing goes amiss, that it can be explained, it can be traced and no losses to the company. So it depends on how we set up the accounts. And that's why it's so important that the scope of the accounts that we identify in a setup depend on the products and what you do. Some people just take generic things, throwing things anyhow, and then feel that it is the reconciliation person's job to unravel it. And just like Taiwo would have experienced, it's not easy. So it's from the setup level that we are talking about these things. And like we go back again to say, accounts reconciliation, the scope of accounts is an accountant's function. You know, this is core accounting. And then the work itself now has to be, you know, such that you organize it in a way that makes the reporting a bit easy for whoever is even at the top. And just as we discussed previously, you have a head where there are 500 accounts. The head has to understand how to categorize these accounts depending on the products and the cycle and the process in order to ensure that it is easy. So let me go down again to this. I will leave Taiwo to talk about banks, go down to SMEs where I belong now. You know, you set up, I set up my accounts and I make sure I identify all my different accounts that need to have correct transactions put in and need then to be reconciled. So if I don't have account heading, which is why we always now say, do not create suspense accounts. Just call it a suspense account. Every account has to have a name, must be identified so that people don't throw in things there. And then who is signing off? What PV is prepared? Okay, for those small companies that are not fully automated, there's still the debit and credit aspects that applies. And therefore, it's important that whether it is a lot of accounts, whether it is a few accounts, the setup is important, understanding the process is important, understanding the products, whatever you do in that organization is important. And we go back again. If you want to set up your accounting system, let management be involved and the right people. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cecilia. Taiwo, just for, in fact, half a second, okay?
It's okay. All right, talking about.
If I don't say half a second, you will spend half an hour. So it's better for me to say half a second. So
that's okay. Thank you. So talking about account scope, for me, I feel that it should be all encompassing, just as Cecilia has said. Both bank reconciliation, your bank account reconciliation, and your internal account reconciliation. No account should be ignored when it comes to reconciliation. You should make sure that you prove all your balances, your stocks, your revenue, even your sales. You must reconcile your sales. That is what we call revenue assurance. be assured that this revenue that is supposed to come in has come in. Your stock, of course, you have to reconcile. So, in summary, no account should be left unproved.
Okay, yeah, okay. Half a second. Fine. Now I want to also put in this.
That's
yes,
okay.
very, very quickly. You see, there is this tendency for organizations to say, oh, how many accounts do we have here? We have 50. But the major ones are just 5. But these other 2 accounts, at times, we don't have more than 2 or 3 transactions in a month. And then because of that, they tend to relegate things. What is your opinion about that?
It's like someone sitting on a keg of gunpowder. Wow. Anything can happen at any time.
Anything can happen
at any time. I tell you from experience that most accounts that are ignored, in some organizations, are those that are used in perpetrating fraud. You know,
fertile ground for them.
Wow. Yeah, fertile ground for fraud. You just look at an account. This account always have a credit balance, and you just ignore it. But in there, some people might have created unnecessary liability for you if you don't prove them.
Okay.
Also, you need to make sure that all those accounts that you think they don't have enough transactions or their balance don't normally change, you need to make sure that you check them as often as you should check them. Maybe weekly, depending on your risk, depending on the environment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. What you're saying in a nutshell is that there's no account that is too small or too big to be identified and incorporated into your account reconciliation process. I like that. Thank you very much. My next question will still go to Taiwo, please. Taiwo, we'll talk about resource commitment. We've had a lot of this input in terms of resource commitment. Now, the next 2 questions will be about management. They talk about poor resource commitment. This is a form of research from the reconciliation officers themselves. They talk about, our resources are not enough. Part of the resources they talk about is automation. Then they talk about welfare of the reconciling officers who at times will come on weekends and public holidays to work. And at times the environment in which they work is not as cozy and good looking like those of the people in the front office that they complain. So what is your opinion about this? And how will this endanger the real objective that we really want to achieve by having our accounts reconciliation as a risk management tool?
Thank you very much, Philip. This is a very, very important aspect of ensuring that reconciliation is carried out properly. Yes. And now I put this responsibility at the doorstep of those who have reconciliation function. You are the one to convince management of the value you are adding. Because management will always think about costs.
Yes.
And then they will support Treasury because Treasury is bringing in money.
Bringing in money, sure.
But you in reconciliation, you are a cost center.
Wow.
So you have to demonstrate beyond reasonable doubt with data what you are doing. For instance, I had this challenge in the past when I once had a department of reconciliation. And what did I do? I picked all the debit balances that have been outstanding for more than 90 days. If I have this inflow into the account, assuming I didn't reconcile, and I don't know that they are there, all this money that I've been able to bring in, this is the costs of that fund.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
This is the cost of, that's the value I am adding. That's the value you compare with the resources input.
Being allocated.
Yes. So if the resource input is not is not aligning with the kind of value you are showing out, then you have a case to make. And of course, the management will be forced to look in your direction.
Yeah.
So that's why I said it is the responsibility those who have accounting, I mean, the reconciliation function in those organizations to bring out the value. If you're adding value to the organization, they will support you. Management will support you with adequate resources. You can then talk about what do you call it? Automation or whatever you need. And this is what I've experienced in the past.
Okay.
Thank you, Taiwo. Cecilia, you want to chip in something?
Yes. A lot of times, again, that's because your personal experience means you can have access, you can convince, you're an accountant put there. But I've also discovered also from personal experience that the level, you see, we're now talking about something that has to be taken note of, that the level we put, the level of the person we put in that function is also critical. Because management, a lot of organizations don't see it as critical. They can just put a manager there who cannot have access to, you know, so depending on the level. So we are coming back to, again, resources, how HR sees it, how management sees that function. The level is just like the way CBN has said, your compliance officer must be this level. I think we are going to get to that stage for banks. Your reconciliation department officer, if you have one, must be at this level because it is a critical function. When you are at a low level, you can't have that access. You know, so I think that is what we, but again, in a small company, the owner has to take responsibility and understand what is being done.
Okay, fine. Now, so Cecilia, just complete it. So, but then we are talking about those that are in charge of the reconciliation system must be able to have access to the management. Now, let's turn the table. Let's invert it. So, what should be the management is in charge of everything. So, what should be the management expectations too? At least if the people there are not asking the right question, the director up there should be able to ask, my friend, what is your department or your unit doing about this and this and that? So what are the questions that the management should ask from the guys that are involved or that are saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that the reconciliation process actually works? What should be the role of the management?
That's again, if the management even understands reconciliation. Because sometimes you have you have an ED that is not an ED functional head. Okay, so you now have the head of operations who is trying to discuss reconciliation, and the ED, because he doesn't understand, doesn't think it's a critical function. And so the more you say, the more the ED is saying, okay, you know what you're doing. So the support you want, just like Taiwo has said, has to be on who is the head and who has access and how we see that function in the entire organization. If the management sees reconciliation as a critical function, attention will be paid. Up to the MD, you know, so you have to be bold enough, just like Taiwo has said, be bold enough to, when you attend the ALCO meetings, to show that your function is critical. So that attention can be paid to whatever you want to do or say.
I know I don't have much time, but let me quickly chip in this. I remember in those days, we were in a bank, I won't mention the name of the bank, and we were there and we were discussing with the MD. Do you know that the MD of the bank was actually interested in some daily report and showing interest on his overseas accounts, you know, foreign accounts, and then the rest. I said that, look, on this particular account, I would like to have what my account status is. That was when they did automation. So the MD himself was actually involved in the benefits derived or the risks he was actually mitigating against by demanding from the reconciling officers or supervisors some reports on daily basis. That's the outlook from the MD. Shouldn't the ED or whosoever that is deputizing for the MD, exhibit such traits too, to at least know how critical some functions is and be able to demand. I'm talking about demanding from the reconciling officers now.
Yes, yes. It's yes, if it is such that that ED knows that it's part of his job function, because a lot of cases, yes, they know it is their job function. The MD is demanding it. Every week that you have to go to ALCO, you will do it. The ED will be forced to learn it and do it, and you don't have a choice because it's critical. Nostro accounts are so critical in every organization, so you'll do it. Yes, but then it has to be part of your routine work.
Thank you very much. Taiwo, let me just bring you straight away, because if I say half a second, I wouldn't know what to do now. Maybe I need to actually slash it to a quarter of a second. But now, Taiwo, you have time now, okay? I want you to talk about the regulatory agencies, okay? The regulatory agencies, because we know that, I know that financial institutions will always dread the statutory authorities, CBN, NDIC. I remember a bank, I won't mention the bank, many years ago, in those days when money was money, they slammed them right off 24 million. This was a time when banks, if they will make 50 million naira, they will be very happy. And you say that yes, this thing has been there for 20 years, right off 24 million, and they have to set up. We came in, of course, we acted as consultants, and happy to tell you that we resolve all the issues and then the rest. Now, where you have such a situation, these regulatory authorities, what is their, have they been helping, especially the financial institutions, in getting them to do the right thing so that they can mitigate against this risk? Taiwo.
Thank you so much, Philip. First and foremost, I would like to say that the regulators should not be seen as enemies of progress. Rather, they're there to protect the investors. No, not exactly. Not exactly. But some of us also have had bitter experiences. We have invested in some institutions that are no more, and we lost, significant portion of our investment. So basically, for those of us in accounting reconciliation, we should see regulators as friends, helping us, because we need to collaborate with them. But when regulators come in and they see reconciliation that is untidy, the first thing the regulators think about is that there is a problem somewhere. Because for an organization where the management is where the management is involved in some unethical practices, reconciliation, of course, will not be given the due attention that it requires. So the regulators will pick on reconciliation and, of course, start slamming them with provisions. So so where you have billions of naira or millions of naira unreconciled, regulators will apply prudential guidelines and, of course, propose what do you call it, provisioning. And when these provisioning are made, the impact on the results of that institution will be negative, and of course, it will affect the outlook of that organization. So regulators, they're coming in with a mindset that they want to assist shareholders.
It comes with penalty. It comes with penalty at times.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely. It comes with penalty.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm saying that at times, the involvement of the statutory authorities, at times they will slam on the bank some penalties.
Of course, apart from provision, they apply penalties, and of course, there is reputation risk that you are now facing as a result of, inadequate reconciliation.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Cecilia, I want to chip in something in a minute.
Yes, as just as you have said, it's so important that we say to ourselves, so in the process of setting up whatever we are doing, we have to have in mind what the regulators are expecting. So if you are doing the reconciliation, you are working the reconciliation process and you don't know what the prudential guidelines are saying, then you do have a problem. And we are going back again to the right people in the right function.
Yes. Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Cecilia. Thank you very much. And now I want to ask this. But before then, let me just pick this. There's a question here, okay? Just before I went to the last one. There's this question about
Treasury and hold a responsible position. You must be certified by ACI in Treasury dealing functions, Treasury operations functions, and they have factored it into the system. So if you don't have a good understanding of Treasury, you can't be the head of operations. You can't be even deal as a treasurer if you don't belong to ACI. If you want to be in risk, then you must be a Riemann member. And therefore, everybody is waking up to, and that's how they have put this risk forward and put the Treasury process also forward to ensure that adequate importance is granted at the management level. And I believe it has to happen for reconciliation. If there's a pressure group started, if, and people pay attention and go to CBN and do all the work you need to do, yes, it will be recognized and certifications will apply. And with that, decisions on how we want to drive reconciliation added to the fact that is a risk management tool, will be elevated.
Okay. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. And then on a note, I want to know, Dr. Yele Okeremi, is he on the line? Dr. Yele Okeremi. Okay, he's on the line. Okay, fine. I'll give him 2 minutes. But then, on a lighter note, there is this issue, and I want Cecilia to come in here.
Yeah.
There is this gist about reconciling officers and ladies.
Yes.
We've seen in the past from research how ladies were transferred to reconciliation units as a punitive measure.
Yeah. Someone
is being difficult, so to speak, or a guy is not cooperating with somebody, and then they know that, in those days, you will go into archives, you go into the store, dirty, and then by the time you come out digging out source documents to do investigation, blah, blah, blah. How do you see this? Using posting of people to reconciliation as a punitive measure. You have some experience you want to share with us, Cecilia?
Yes. On a lighter note, really, it's just being unnecessarily vindictive at the detriment of the organization.
Wow.
You can post a lot of people there because they are stubborn in your eyes. What of the spate of resignations that can happen? Don't forget that at the junior stage, people walk out of their job functions and there's nothing you can do. And then what then should be happening? It then means that the work never gets done. Your risk is higher, losses happen, and maybe frauds can then happen. So, it's a lot of people are doing it, cutting their noses to spite their face. It's like sending somebody to clear.
Taiwo, what has you experienced?
Yes.
Hello, Taiwo. You have to unmute.
Okay.
Taiwo, please. So what's your using postings or assignments in the Reconciliation Division as a punitive measure?
Yes.
How should this be a practice?
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at all. Because like we have been saying, if you put someone in reconciliation department because you want to punish that person or because that person did not perform well, no, putting somebody in reconciliation function, you can as well just note that that organization is shooting itself in the foot.
Good. Okay, fine. I shouldn't be. I want to thank you very much.
There are some questions that are here. Maybe.
Okay. So, okay.
We'll come back to that.
Okay, fine. Please go ahead.
Yes, yes.
Is Dr. Okeremi on the line now? Okay, no. Okay, fine. I want to say this. I want to thank you very much, Cecilia, and thank you very much for making it a date with us. We appreciate you. We appreciate your input, and we are not taking the relationship for granted at all. Thank you very much on behalf of the board and management of Precise Financial Systems, and specifically on behalf of Dr. Yele Okeremi. I want to say a very big thank you. And I'm very sure when next we call on you, it will be your pleasure to grant us audience. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Yes, thank you. Taiwo, thank you. And for our good participants, I've been enjoying this moment. As I said, when we started, this is the beginning of new things that will be giving back to the environment. PFS March, just last month, was 28 years. And then, of course, you can look at my cap. I try to, look yuppie, but then we've been in business for over 28 years.
Yes.
You look like you look like a chief from the east.
When I met Taiwo and Cecilia in those days, many years ago, 15, 18 years ago,
much more than that.
Looking kiki and then the rest, but now you can look at them. But then we still have a lot on the archives that we can begin to give to the environment. So for the next 15 months, we have a lot of topics to discuss. For now, we do it monthly. So next month, another one is coming. Thereafter, it's going to be a fortnight program. And I can tell you that there wouldn't be any everything is going to be very, very active. Nothing will be boring at all. Nothing will be boring. On the 19th of May, God's willing, we're going to have another one. And let me give you a tip. The topic is very, very important. It goes to the foundation of accounts reconciliation function itself. And it is data quality in accounts reconciliation. Are we cooking books? That's a question. Data quality in accounts reconciliation. Are we cooking books? So we're going to inform you at the appropriate time, and then please you go have contact us at pfs.biz, and then we would like to have you. If you have comments, you have some other things that you want us to consider, please feel free to send to us. You can log on to our website, and then we'll be glad to have your input and then to have your questions. If you want to invite us, we'll also be very, very glad to do that. Thank you very much. And with this, I want to also thank our guys behind the screen. I want to thank Wale Okubote, and I also thank Jide Alaka and my technical juggernaut here, Favor. Thank you very, very much. See you next month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having us here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Philip.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taiwo. And Philip.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank
Dr. Yele, we haven't seen him. Extend our regards.
Oh, yes, we do that.
He's busy making money.
No. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.